Hi everyone, I'm Rob Hawkes.
I'm Chris Blackburn.
And as you know, we run Training Tuesdays every week, 4:30. At the moment though, with the coronavirus pandemic hitting the country and the world, we're going to be running Training Tuesdays remotely. Isn't that right, Chris?
That's correct. So everybody stay safe. We will still be ensuring that the training happens on a weekly basis, but we will be working remotely through that process too.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, so welcome everybody to Training Tuesdays. It is Tuesday, the 12th of May, 2020, and today we are covering the first in 6 series of building rapport. What is the first session that we're going to do, Chris?
So the first session today, we are going to cover big picture questions, I believe, Rob, is that correct?
We're gonna do it a bit differently. For those of you who know the training, the first of the 6 is big picture questions. The second is breaking the mold. So we're going to break the mold and we're going to cover breaking the mold. So there you go. So everybody write down with your pen and paper, we're going to be doing breaking the mold. So just write that down. So Chris, what do we mean by that?
So breaking the mold for us is being very likable and memorable. But really, I guess to summarize it is don't be that guy or person, should we say. So breaking the mold actually means doing something opposite to what the potential customer, prospect, or even existing customer would expect you to do. So we're going to run through some really practical ways and some key examples today, and make sure you walk away with something that you can do a little bit different to what you've normally been doing to break the mold and build rapport instantaneously with a customer.
Yeah, and we've been looking at the as always, we like to get that dictionary definition to kind of the overriding arching of what we're doing, which is rapport and relationship. So I don't expect you to write this down, but have this in the forefront of your mind, as it were. So a close and harmonious relationship in which the people or groups concerned understand each other's feelings or ideas and communicate well. So a close and harmonious relationship in which the people understand each other's feelings and ideas well. So over the next 6 weeks, we're going to be going through the 6 stages. Next week, spoiler, will be big picture questions, but breaking the mold, doing something different. We're not doing something completely different. We could have worn red t-shirts and stood upside down, but we're not talking about that. As Chris highlighted, don't be that guy or that person. As Chris highlighted, we've got to be politically correct. So don't be that person.
I feel like as well, Rob, that breaking the mold for me, the reason why I strongly believe that as the first step around rapport building is so important is because we always go through the process that people buy people. And I feel like if you break the mold that we'll obviously be running through today, that instantly gets that connection with you as the individual. Obviously, as we go through it, we'll be asking big picture questions, going through third parties and everything that we'll be covering over the next 6 weeks as well. But I think breaking the mold is, for me, one of the first things that I try and do, whether it's my go-to, like we've covered that over the last few weeks. You know, how are you doing today? I'm doing really well. I mean, I've just finished the process of moving house, so I guess things could be a little bit better. But apart from that, I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you? I always have my go-to, and I always try and break the mold because, well, not everybody does that, you know? Like you're calling around ample of businesses or business to consumer sales and asking how people are. It's good. How are you? Yeah, good. Thank you. And the reason for my call today, it kind of runs straight into that, where we'll run through it today. If it's cold outreach, outbound calling, if it's LinkedIn, if it's social media, breaking the mold will connect the person to you as the individual that will allow you and give you the framework to continue the conversation moving forward.
Yeah. And just being real as well, like there's reasons why some people feel like you have to go all professional or all the other way. I think having a bit of a balance, but we've got to be real. We're real people at the end of the day. I normally say I can touch Chris. I can't, he's there, but we are real people. And I think it shows that you're human, but we don't mean being too human. We're not talking about the price of tea in China or, but it's just about actually doing something a little bit different, in which that might gain a bit of attention, or just someone would notice you, or it would stand out. Because as we've highlighted over the course of the last few weeks, and it's always overriding of what we do here at ISR, is people by people. So at the end of the day, if you walk away from an interaction where somebody would say, "Oh, like I really like that guy, or really like that girl or that person," that's what we're after. And I think that what we're really looking to do is to not sound scripted.
Mm-hmm.
Don't, people talk to dozens of people a day. If you're B2B or you're B2C, maybe at the moment people are talking to more people because they're self-isolating. So if someone's really tried to sell somebody on that last call, and you're maybe doing a bit of outreach for your business, all they're expecting to happen is for them to be sold to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last thing that you want when you've spent, you might have just got off the phone with Optus or, or someone, and you might just be like, oh man, they didn't even listen to me. Mm-hmm. So can you crack a joke, or can you say something that's memorable? I remember Michael, our head of operations, he always used to talk about, going to the gym, and he said, I can barely lift my arms. And it's just a tiny little bit of like an insight into, he goes to the gym, is he, how long has he been going? I don't know. It just creates a bit of intrigue. And I think that it breaks the monotony of what could appear to be scripted. So maybe for those of you in the chat, just put a yes, or I have done in the past, if you've ever used a script before, or structure on Facebook as well, if you're using if you've ever used a script, and perhaps just to give a bit of an understanding. So maybe Chris, do you want to unpack how do you not sound scripted? Like if you're trying to separate yourself from the pack, mm-hmm. How do you go about throughout? Because you've spoken about what your go-to is, but what do you do throughout the call to perhaps not come across as scripted, to really break the mold when it comes to structure?
Yeah, so I always have framework or a process in my brain. I've never been a scripted individual. I can see Alvin's in here today. Me and him had a good 45-minute sort of strategy session that we'll share a couple of ideas that we came in this session today as well. And I always have a process in my brain of the way the conversation's going to go and the type of questions I'm going to ask, but I stay very authentic. So I just make sure I have a process or a guideline of what I'm going to follow, but an actual verbatim script. I mean, I spent 3.5 years in insurance, so that was verbatim. Unfortunately for me, I had to follow a script word for word because of the legislations. But depending on your industry, for the people inside here, if you can have the framework in your brain in regards with our 10-step process, the negotiation ladder, how to make the winning first impression, how to then qualify the customer across decision maker, finances, are they ready to purchase your product really early? Discover their wants and needs, being able to present you, and again, I'm not going to run through the whole sales process, but each individual part would be then broken up into a structure. And one of the 3-step process for people taking notes, if you've heard this or may want to have a refresher around this, is called ART. If you could just pop that into the chat, Rob. So A for Alpha, R for Romeo, T for Tango, ART. So I utilize this 3-step process, whether it's the first time speaking with somebody, an online chat, if somebody requests more information around how our products and services are priced, what that sort of looks like. I follow this 3-step process, as crazy as it sounds as a salesperson, to actually get off the subject to presenting a product, because I need to identify who I'm speaking to before I get dragged into presenting. So the A stands for acknowledge or appreciate. The R stands for respond or relate. And the T would be a transition question. If people are wanting practicals, my advice is maybe have 15 to 20 transition questions that you can utilize that gets you off the subject. So as an example, if somebody popped in their details and they wanted more information around how our academy works, I get on the phone with the person and they say, how much is your prices? What I'd say is, how much is the prices? So I'd acknowledge, I'd repeat it back word for word what they've said. That's a really good question. And for us, we have ranges from a few $100s up to a few $100,000. That's how I respond or relate. My transition question there would be something so far away from the products and services where it could be, but tell me more anyway before we look at that. What's the industry you're actually in? Or it could be, we're actually based on the Gold Coast as well. Whereabouts are you based from? So I could have an abundance of transition questions that, yes, at the end of a conversation, if I can help somebody, it's always nice to make the sale. But to break the mold, I want to try and get off this as much as I possibly can.
So kind of what you're saying is you're avoiding presenting when given an opportunity to, without completing a discovery, without knowing anything about it. Yeah. And would it
I'm going to say, even when you do know the person, you do know what they're looking for. Another prime example, as we know, we've just finished a 14-day sales challenge. So all I did at Courtesy was call around the 150, 200 people that I managed to secure and put into the 14-day challenge. I called, and within the first 30 seconds, what are you trying to sell me? I said, what am I trying to sell you? Firstly, I respect that because I've called you out the blue. But if our training has showed anything over the last 2 weeks, we don't call to sell. Our job's to see if there's a sale to be made. So the purpose of my call today was actually to find out how you found the 14-day challenge. So could you kind of give me an idea on what your big takeaway was? And I broke the mold that much that I gained the feedback. It was a 20-minute call, do you know? But if I'd have fell into the traps, as you will, to present what we do, he'd have seen me as the next salesperson coming along to sell a product, where that wasn't my goal.
Do you think that the knee-jerk reaction would be to go, no, I'm not trying to sell you anything?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
When actually what you're saying is, well, look, like, I don't know if I can sell you anything, and sorry if that's the way that it's come across, but my job today is to establish whether or not there is a sale to be made. So you're kind of saying, look, if there is, then absolutely, but without knowing. So so you're essentially doing the opposite of what he would imagine you to do, which is to try to say, no, I'm not. When the reality is that if the conversation had gone to the fact that you could have helped him to buy, become an assistant buyer, then if you'd said at the beginning, no, you're actually contradicting yourself.
Correct. Yeah. And I think with what you asked there, like, how do I do that in my brain? It's just the process. Like, I don't move to the point of presenting or overcoming objections until I'm at that stage. And I know that sounds simplistic, but if I'm calling somebody, my first thing is, are they going to answer the call? The second thing is, when they answer the call, how do I make a winning first impression on them today? Whether I know them or I don't know them, how do I do that? Then how do I find out how they're doing? Sort of discover what they're looking for, their business. If I don't know who they are, if I do, how is business been going? And if there's a way then to look at a different service, then we may do that. But again, it's breaking the mold, you know?
So maybe on that then, guys, and Chris, I think what you've highlighted there is really valuable, that you are going through the process step by step. You're not having a preconceived idea about what you're looking to obtain from a call or from an interaction, which is the opposite of what people think salespeople are. Right. Perhaps just in the interaction here on Facebook, hi Sam, welcome along, and the guys here in, Chris, we had a few comments, just so you know as well. We had, Jane said that she was forced to use a company script. Leanne used to variate. Amanda said that you were authentic, and Alex said that he loved the transition there. Can we just maybe, guys, put into the chat, what do you feel like the anti-salesperson, because we're salespeople, so we're saying that we're the way that we want to sell, all of us here, we as in the collective we. So what's the things that the salespeople that we don't want to be, what are the things that we're expecting people to do? So, we talk about not listening, trying to force something onto somebody, whatever. Just in the chat, put the things that perhaps people are expecting, and then we can come up with the opposite. So how we would break the mold in that scenario. So just in the chat there, right? Presenting without discovering, or let's see what we get from that, and then how we can overcome that. We're getting a few come through. So what have we got? We've got pushy, aggressive, arrogant, condescending, not listening. What else have we got? Aggressive. I'd agree with those. Anything else? Anything that would lead you to believe that they are being like every other salesperson out there? Not listening, sounding flat, which is good. So would that be that they wouldn't be listening to what they're saying? They're not actually giving you the time of day. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Actually, just on avoid the questions you asked too, Josie, 100%. I think that first step, whether you're following a Rio or art, I think if you're not If you're avoiding the questions, you're not responding it back, so it's not showing that the person's listened. But on Mariana's point around sounding flat, myself and Alvin, who's in this session today, who's looking to utilize LinkedIn to connect with more people, just as a bit of a quick practical in there as well, once we connect with an individual on LinkedIn, if people use that platform, if you don't and you're in B2B, I highly recommend to get LinkedIn. But once you've sent out a connection with an individual, there's an opportunity in there to actually send a voice message. So the reason I wanted to sort of reference that is when we're sending a text or an email or an outreach campaign on social media, we can sound flat because we don't have the ability to get our tone across with the message as well. So if people are utilizing LinkedIn, I'd highly recommend, or even in the chat as well, or even just to think, when was the last time you received a voice message? Now, if your answer is 0 or less than 5, then that's breaking the mold. Never received it.
Yeah,
that is breaking the mold. If you connect with somebody, message them on LinkedIn and jump on a voice message and say, hey, Alex, I came across your profile today. Love the fact that you do X, Y, and Z. Hope you don't mind me connecting today. And just in case there's somebody in there that may benefit from what you do, what's the main service that you specialize in? If you was to receive, and again, probably another thing to answer your question, Rob, for the years I've done this, I've always put myself in the customer's shoes. Whenever I'm messaging, whenever I'm asking a question, whenever I'm presenting, always put myself in the shoe of the customer. Now, if I was a customer and somebody voice messaged me and said, hey, Chris, I've seen your profile. I've seen you guys are working with some awesome companies. What's the main thing you offer with sales training? But they did that in a voice message. I believe that the message would be received completely different. I don't know your opinion on that, Rob.
Well, it's interesting. Aaron on Facebook said I had someone connect with me on LinkedIn, went straight into a pitch without even an intro or attempt at connection. Mm-hmm. Even if the guy connected and then sent a message to say, hey, Aaron, just literally recorded it using the app on the phone. Mm-hmm. You get 60 seconds and just say, hey, I've recently looked at your profile and I believe X, Y, and Z might help you. Even doing that rather than just copy and pasting a generic message, that's doing something that's different. Even recording a face-to-face message, based on the fact that a lot of people are saying they've never received one or very little, I would completely agree with you that is doing something outside of the box that's not really that difficult to do. And I think that's definitely something. Hey, another tip in regards to that, which you can do this on LinkedIn if you've been looking at prospects for a while, is to talk about the phrase or the sentence, I'm persistent but respectful. I like saying that, look, I'm very persistent, but I am very respectful. I believe that this product or service would be of benefit to you, but please just let me know if this is something that you're genuinely considering. If not, I wish you well. Send that in a voice message or a video message. To highlight the fact that you're persistent but you are respectful shows that you're genuinely caring about that individual, but you do believe that you can help them. If you send that, we would call that a line in a sand interaction. That's doing something a little bit different. The wording in the email or sending a text message like that quite simply can break the mold. Another quick tip as well, if me and Chris do this together quite often, is using as a hand up or a second voice. You know that there are some salespeople out there that will hold on to a lead like it's they're on the their last breath. Sometimes a second voice can actually break that chain of communication, elevate somebody else, and completely change the direction of an interaction. We as salespeople try to think, oh, well, they'll only want to deal with me. But sometimes a simple hand up to say, hey, I'm going to put you in contact with, or even like a quality control call, might actually bring just a different set of eyes to a situation. Tough to do in sales, and for the guys that are, working, 20, 12, 13-hour days to obtain clients, that's a tough thing to do. But actually, it has a lot of power. I'm sure, I don't know if you'd agree with me there on the hand up, but I know you and I have worked very well together over the course of the last 18 months in sort of working with each other's leads.
Yeah, we've done that very, very consistently between me and Rob as well. And just to be aware as well, we don't do that from an unethical point of view to just obtain the sale. We generally do it for feedback. So for an example, we did have an individual that now moved forward with our business that Rob's been dealing with for a very long time. I gave him a call because Rob would like, me to sort of get feedback based on his communication. And when I called, they said, I'm just not ready for the training yet. And I said, no, you're not ready for the training yet. Firstly, I respect that. My job today, though, as the head of sales, is actually to just gain feedback on the staff, just to make sure that the next time that somebody comes through that reaches out for our business, that we're improving our service. So how was Rob? And see how I followed that art, the 3-step process to do that. I responded, you're not ready to do the training. Firstly, I respect that. I've not had the chance or the pleasure to speak with you before, but my call today is to gain feedback from Rob. Can I just get a bit of an idea? How have you found him so far?
And that lends into controlling the conversation, which is one of the Swish, mantras about being, Chris be controlling that the whole way for feedback only. Again, not to make a sale. Just
in mind that call was 35 minutes, and it did turn out to be somebody that now moved forward with our business. But the results and the enjoyment that he's got so far from the training, my question to Rob was, why have we not helped this person 3 months ago? Forget the sale. Like, why have we not supported him for the last 3 months? Like, what could we have achieved? So when me and Rob do coaching, we can start looking at things of what we can do a little bit different the next time that potentially comes up, and vice versa together. So I'd recommend, if anybody's got staff and you can start buddying up in that sort of system and do quality controls, the information that somebody will give somebody else when they come from a level of authority will change the game for what you do. I promise you that.
Leanne's just said there, she's done it with 5 customers the last 2 weeks with a colleague, which is obviously, we've just had a couple of questions, which we've got a few minutes to go. So I just want to make sure. Fernando has asked, how do you follow up if they only reply via message and not voice clip? Do you reply via voice clip? I would continue to reply by voice message on that one. And the other one is, I always get, what's the price before you present? How do you handle that? Again, resist the temptation to present, but like what we've highlighted here, and other people have said, avoiding the question, we don't want to avoid that, but we want to do what Chris did earlier and give a sliding scale if you can do so. So we would say from as little as all the way to, so for example, the deal with Mercedes-Benz behind me, for all the way up to whatever, $500,000, starting from whatever. So if you can offer a sliding scale, it means that, but then you've got to make sure, like Chris said, is you've got to ask a question away from the price. But forget about that for the moment. How long have you been, or what have you been doing? And just trying to make sure. It's the same goes when someone, let's say that someone's you're doing a complaint handling call and somebody gives you a fact or a figure that's incorrect. In fact, you totally know that it's not right. There's a temptation to interject or correct. If somebody said, really, really great that you guys did that deal on Fish Tank. That was awesome. I might want to interject to go, oh no, by the way, it's Shark Tank. But people get defensive when you do that. So I want to break the mold and just ignore it for now. Ask them down that train of where we're going. Okay, great. And when did you watch the show? Oh yeah, X amount of months ago. Okay, perfect. And how long have you been following Shark Tank for a while? Now I've subtly corrected without making a conflict on that point. So the same goes if you're in a situation where somebody's maybe giving you an objection and it's the wrong information, or that, maybe one of your staff said this. Resist the temptation to correct somebody is completely breaking the mold. We have this desire to want to correct and to modify, but actually doing something a little bit different, like not trying to get defensive or rebut or overcome that problem, will actually help change the whole complexion of the conversation. Don't get drawn into dealing with things at source that don't actually matter. Break that mold, be different. Own your mistakes. If you make a mistake, own it. Oh, okay, did you do this? Absolutely. Okay. Remember, we've got 3 dialogues inside of in our head. We've got the internal, inbound and outbound. That internal dialogue that's ticking over in people's brains, they're expecting you to say, no, that wasn't me. Absolutely it was. And it will really kind of shake the apple tree sort of thing. That it will just snap people out of their line of thinking. So there's definitely a few more things that you can do. Any other quick things, Chris, that you think any quick tips that how to? I mean, we could do breaking mold.
Yeah, we could keep running. I think just based on Brandon's comment around price, just the only thing I'd add on to that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people dealing with price. I mean, I've been personally coaching clients, as I'm sure you have, Rob, dealing with the price objection or price question, should we say, more consistently now. One thing I see whenever I get a price objection, let's say our training, I see that as such a good opportunity to build more value in what we do. So as Rob said, give a sliding scale, and Brandon, I know you obviously offer food products. So go from, an individual store. We have many different services, but I understand the investment and the price that you're going to pay and everything else is going to be so crucial to your business. So I respect that. But as I'm sure you can appreciate as well, the services I offer to the regular convenience stores all the way through to IGA that I get the opportunity to support is very, very different. It ranges from such a separate scale that, we offer from a few thousand up to a few 100,000. So for me to truly understand what's going to be right, if we can help you, I mean, I don't even know if we can yet, but tell me more of an ad transition. I'd get off that as much as you possibly can. You've appreciated, you relate with humor or humility, and you actually have that opportunity then to build more value, and then transition and get off it. And we teach it a lot. Allow that seed to plant. Your job over the next 30 minutes, 30 days, 300 days is to water that seed with more value. But until you break the mold, nobody will give you the opportunity, in my opinion, to add more value.
Absolutely. And I like Mandy's comment there. It's an opportunity to add more value. It 100% is. Just a quick point on Facebook. Neil's asked, what about your LinkedIn ads responding to your likes? So again, one of the things that we found with with the sales challenge, we've just done a 14-day sales challenge for those of you who are in our actually a lot of people aren't in the academy who've done it as well. Some people were commenting, and to receive a personalized video message from our director, people were like, what? He was up till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning responding to all of these. To me, that's breaking the mold. He didn't have to do that. I think one guy even paid us the $97 back, didn't he? Because he was like, I can't believe how much value you gave in that 14 days. Can't believe that was free. It's not free anymore, but he paid retrospectively. When does that ever happen? So I think that to answer your question, Neil, I would absolutely respond to anybody who's taken the time, even if it's just as simple as to like a post. I would get on and message them and say, hey, thanks for liking. What did you like about it, just out of interest? Yeah. And really try to figure out, remember, we're always building rapport or gather intelligence. So remember that we want to try to build a relationship, again, break the mold, do something different, or we want to gather a bit of intelligence, find out what it was that they liked about it. I don't know if you, Chris, you've seen Alvin has just said, we've just had a question, excuse me if I'm wrong, but I heard the term line in the sand.
This is your today.
That was just referencing, if you feel like you're going nowhere with somebody, just to message them to say, hey, look, we've had a few interactions. I'm pretty persistent, but I am respectful. Let me know what I can do to make this deal happen. Or are we still moving forward? Just something like that. It's a way to just sort of funnel out some of the deadwood in your pipeline, as it were, just to move some people out there that maybe sat in there a while. And when you get quite direct like that, you're being respectful because you're saying, look, I just want to be respectful. You're busy, I'm busy. And it's just a way to sometimes, look, it doesn't always work, and it's not a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet in sales. We know that. But it's just to do something a little bit different. Send them a voice message, a video, whatever, just something a little bit out there that maybe someone else hasn't done. There's a really good article. I'm going to try and find it and post it up later, of these guys who won a deal in America about, they did like a virtual reality pitch. And they photoshopped themselves in like board meetings with the guy they were trying to get hold of. It was awesome. Like they were doing pictures with them, like it would be like me, like, we would try and sit down with Richard Branson and get a photo of him and trying to shake his hand and then send it to his office or something. It's really, but yeah, just doing something a bit different. So yeah, Chris, I don't really want to summarize breaking the mold. We've covered a lot here. We've given quite a few practicals, but if you were to summarize breaking the mold, what would you give it as an overarching understanding, in our Swish methodology, would you say?
Do something different to the normal. I think that's probably the best way I'd summarize that. And as a practical, I'd probably just draw 2 lines down the paper. I'd have phone, I'd have email, and I'd have social media, or however you connect with potential clients, and think tonight or over the course of the next few days, what can you do across all them different methods that you reach out to people or connect with people or use social media? How can you be different across them 3, 4, 5 mediums that you use?
Yeah. I think as well, just quickly, one thing that's popped into my head, which just as we finish actually on that, about being consistent with your questioning and your exit phrases. Try where possible to avoid, if we are saying lines like, I've got one more question for you, or I'd love to know, in that sort of, as I've just did there, that's what prompted me to think about it. Just as we finish, make sure that is the wrap up. We're being consistent with that. There's nothing worse than somebody saying they're going to finish and then they whittle on for another 20 minutes. And I'm not going to do that now. But yeah, we're. I was just going to hang up then because I wanted to break the mold and end meeting, but I'm not. Yeah, no, look, guys, that's a wrap for today. Training Tuesday's done and dusted. Another one in the books, in the pocket, ready to go. So, Chris, next week, what are we covering?
So next week, we're actually going to cover the big picture questions. So after we've broke the mold, how to find really people's why is what we're going to run through next week, and asking some really big picture questions to uncover their needs.
Awesome. Don't forget, guys, the 14-day sales challenge starts again on Monday. It is $97. If you are part of the Academy, you're able to invite a friend. So if you are already in our Swish Academy and you'd like to take part in the 14-day sales challenge, please make sure, Chris has just popped up a link on there, please make sure that you allow the time to do the challenges inside of there. It will take around 30 minutes to 45 minutes a day or so to really get the most out of that challenge. Join the Facebook group. It's a private group. Interact. Go nuts, network. I've spoken to 3 or 4 clients today who've generated a lot of work from being inside of that group. Some connections made with Jesse and Jared and some of the guys in there. So yeah, so remember, 14-day challenge. Make sure that you jump on there and check it out if you're not part of it. Chris, it's been my absolute pleasure to share half an hour with you. And thank you for the nuggets of gold that you've shared with people today. Much appreciated.
Thank you, and hopefully we'll be back in the office in the next week or so, and me and Rob can sit 2 meters apart and deliver the same training.
There is there waiting for you, mate.
Oh, mate, I'm dying to get back in. I'm sure everybody else is. I do love working from home, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back in the office anyway. But awesome. There was our wrapping up 6 minutes ago, so let's actually wrap it up, Rob.
It was only 1 minute from when I said just finally. All right, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Remember, next week, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.
Be safe, everyone.
Bye-bye.